I've always had a soft spot for surprises. There's just something magical about catching someone off guard in the best possible way, watching their expression change from puzzled to delighted. That's exactly what I thought I was creating when I spontaneously gathered the kids and boarded a last-minute flight across the country to visit my wife. I imagined this would be one of those unforgettable moments we look back on with fondness for years to come, a perfect memory locked in time. Lately, Emily had been traveling more frequently for her job, and though I tried not to let it bother me, the distance was starting to wear on me. Not out of distrust, never that, but because I genuinely missed her. The kids did too. Our late-night FaceTime calls were growing shorter, and her messages were less frequent. I figured she was just overwhelmed, deadlines piling up, demanding clients, the usual chaos she'd sometimes talk about when she finally got a moment to herself. Then something odd happened. It was Saturday evening. The kids wanted to hear her voice before bedtime, so I dialed her number expecting her to answer, groggy but affectionate, maybe whisper a quick, loving message before falling asleep. Instead, the call rang endlessly before diverting to voicemail. At first, I didn't think much of it. Phones die. People fall asleep early or get pulled into meetings. That's what I told myself, until I saw her social media update. Emily hadn't just gone quiet. She was very much active. She had just posted a photo, a dim, slightly blurry snapshot of an empty wine glass sitting on a restaurant table. The caption read, "Much needed night out." I stared at the image, confused. If she was out enjoying dinner, why hadn't she answered my call? Why ignore my messages? And most of all, who was she with? Trying to stay calm, I told myself it was probably a business dinner. Maybe she was with colleagues, entertaining clients. But a knot twisted in my stomach. Something didn't sit right. That's when my 8-year-old, Tyler, chimed in, his voice full of excitement. We should surprise her. Lily, our 5-year-old and always ready for an adventure, clapped with glee and added, "Yes. Let's go see Mommy." That was all the encouragement I needed. Within minutes, I had booked our flights. Maybe it was reckless. Maybe it was overly spontaneous. But I couldn't stop thinking about the look on Emily's face when she saw us standing there. I imagined the shock turning into joy, her eyes filling with tears, dropping everything to wrap her arms around the kids. I pictured us all cuddled in a hotel bed, ordering room service, letting the kids bounce on the pillows. A night filled with warmth and laughter, just like old times. But that fantasy quickly unraveled. By the time we arrived, it was nearly midnight. The kids were drowsy, Tyler trudging beside me, Lily asleep in my arms, as we navigated the quiet airport. My heart was pounding with anticipation. I hailed a cab, told the driver the name of Emily's hotel, and stared out the window as the city's lights flickered past. I hadn't called or messaged her. I wanted the moment to be a true surprise. The hotel lobby welcomed us with a refined stillness, soft piano melodies playing in the background, the faint clinking of glasses from the nearby bar. I approached the front desk, adjusting Lily's weight as I smiled at the receptionist. "Hi, my wife is staying here. Emily Carter. I'd love to surprise her. Could you let us up to her room?" Her friendly expression faltered. "I'm sorry, sir. We don't have anyone by that name checked in." For a second, her words didn't register. I blinked in disbelief and gave a nervous laugh. That can't be right. She's here for a conference. She tapped away at her keyboard, scanning the screen. "Are you sure you have the right hotel?" I nodded, certain. "She's been staying here all week." After a pause, she looked up cautiously. "We have no record of anyone with that name." Unease crept in. I quickly pulled out my phone and scrolled to the last message Emily had sent, the one where she shared the hotel details. I turned the screen toward the receptionist. She sent this. "See? This exact hotel." Her brows drew together as she read. Then she said something that made the room spin. "Sir, this is indeed the right hotel. But that reservation was canceled 4 days ago." My mouth went dry. 4 days ago? Emily had told me she was still here. She had just texted me the night before, saying she was worn out from meetings and looking forward to coming home. She had lied. I smiled faintly, trying to steady my thoughts. Maybe she made a new reservation under a different name? "Could you check again?" The woman hesitated, her professional smile never wavering. "I can search for recent bookings, but without a name." "Please," I cut in, my voice tighter than intended. "Check anything that was reserved the same day her original booking was canceled." She nodded slightly and resumed typing. I watched her carefully, scanning for any flicker in her expression, anything that might confirm what I didn't want to believe. Finally, she looked up. "There was another reservation made that same day," she said slowly. but I can't share guest details. I exhaled deeply. Is it under the name Carter? She paused again before responding gently. No, sir. A wave of nausea washed over me. Tyler yawned beside me, rubbing his tired eyes. Lily was dozing off, her head resting lightly on my shoulder, one small hand clutching the edge of my jacket. The kids were completely unaware. They had no idea that, in just a matter of minutes, their mother had shifted from simply being tired at a conference to somewhere else entirely. And the truth was, I didn't know where she had gone either. Thanks, I murmured, stepping away from the front desk. My heart was thudding so loudly it felt like it echoed in my ears. I needed to gather my thoughts, figure out what to do next. Guiding the children over to a small lounge area in the hotel lobby, I gently settled Lily into a cushioned chair and crouched down next to Tyler. Hey, buddy. I need you to help me out, all right? Stay here with your sister for just a minute while I make a quick phone call. He nodded, blinking away sleepiness. My chest tightened as I walked away, pulled out my phone, and dialed Emily's number. It rang several times before I heard the soft click of her answering. Her voice came through, airy and light. Hey, babe. Sorry, I just got back to my room. It's been a long day. My jaw tightened. Really? Which room would that be? There was a pause. I picked up muffled voices in the background, quiet laughter, a man's low voice, though I couldn't make out the words. She responded too quickly. What? Keeping my tone even, I told her. I'm in the hotel lobby, Emily. The one you said you were staying at. I've got the kids with me. But you're not here. You canceled your reservation 4 days ago. So let me ask again, where are you? This time, the silence lingered longer. I heard sounds of movement, as though she were walking, a door shutting behind her, and the background noise disappearing. You? Why are you here? That was all she said. Not a word about the kids. No surprise. No concern. Just a flat question, like I was the one doing something wrong. My hands began to shake. Emily, I need an answer. She drew in a shaky breath, then replied, I can't deal with this right now. We'll talk when I get home. And just like that, she ended the call. I stared at the phone in disbelief. The same woman I had been excited to surprise earlier that day, the one I had trusted without question, had just dismissed me completely. Tyler was awake now, watching me closely, his small face furrowed with concern. Dad? He asked quietly. I swallowed the storm of emotion swelling inside me. Lily shifted in her sleep, murmuring something incoherent. I forced myself to smile. It's all right, buddy. I had no idea whether that was true, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't leaving without the truth. I slid the phone back into my pocket and took a deep breath through my nose, trying to steady myself. My fingers were trembling, my whole body buzzing with a mix of anger and disbelief. Emily had been dishonest. Not just once. Repeatedly. And she hadn't even bothered to come up with a convincing story. All she gave me was, I can't do this right now. Like I was just another work call interrupting her evening. Like I wasn't her husband. Like the kids sitting here in the middle of a hotel lobby at midnight didn't even matter to her. I looked at them, Tyler rubbing his eyes, trying so hard to stay awake. Lily curled up in the chair, her tiny hand twitching as she dreamed. No, I wasn't going to walk away from this. I knelt beside Tyler again. Hey, bud. I know it's really late, but I need you to stay awake just a little longer. Think you can do that? He nodded, blinking quickly to push the sleep away. That's my guy, I said with a smile. We're going to find your mom. It's like a little adventure. His eyes lit up a bit. Like a spy mission? Exactly that. Lily shifted slightly in her sleep. I gently brushed a strand of hair from her face and looked up at Tyler. You're in charge of your sister now, okay? Can I count on you? He nodded again, more alert now, pride showing in his face at the responsibility. I stood and returned to the front desk. The receptionist was still there, eyeing me with a mix of unease and sympathy. Listen, I began, my voice hushed. I'm not asking for a room number. I just need to know, did the new reservation include 2 guests? She hesitated, clearly conflicted. I get it, I added quickly. I know you can't share names. I'm not asking for that. But she's my wife. She's the mother of my kids. I just need to know if she's here alone. The woman glanced around nervously before leaning in and whispering, Yes. 2 guests. I nodded slowly, absorbing the confirmation. The next few moments were a blur. I didn't even remember walking out of the building. Somehow, I ended up on the sidewalk, pacing, my hands opening and closing by my sides like they were searching for something to grasp, anything to release the pressure boiling inside me. Emily hadn't just lied about the conference. She had lied about everything. The late-night phone calls. The sweet messages saying she missed us. All of it had been fiction. I had stayed home, trusting that she was away working hard for our family. But she had been here, with someone else. And she hadn't even cared enough to fabricate a decent excuse when I showed up unannounced. She had just hung up on me, as though I were nothing more than a nuisance. I felt my pulse throbbing in my ears and throat. She hung up on me, like I didn't matter. I pulled out my phone again, thumb hovering over her contact. I wanted to call her back, to demand an explanation. But what was the point? She would just lie again. I let out a sharp breath and shoved the phone back into my pocket. Fine. If she wouldn't tell me the truth, I'd find it myself. Turning toward the hotel, my thoughts began to race. If she wasn't staying here under her real name, she had to be somewhere nearby. She'd made mistakes before, I just needed to track them. I cast a quick glance back toward the window, checking on the kids inside. Tyler had taken Lily's hand, sensing something wasn't right. I refused to let them down. I couldn't allow Emily to brush this off, as if I were invisible. If she thought she could pretend I didn't exist, she was in for a rude awakening. I'd make sure she remembered exactly who I was. I didn't bother heading back inside. What was the point? Emily had vanished, and whoever she was with, maybe her business partner, a coworker, or some other conveniently crafted excuse, was likely lounging in a nearby hotel room, thinking they'd slipped away unnoticed. But they were wrong. Instead of calling her again, I opened my phone for something else entirely. I tapped into the Find My iPhone app. For years, Emily and I had shared our locations, mostly for safety, especially with her traveling so often. It gave me peace of mind knowing where she was, and she'd never once asked me to stop. In fact, she had always agreed without question. Maybe now she'd forgotten. Or maybe she assumed I wouldn't check. My chest tightened as the app loaded. The little spinning circle searched, loading slowly. And then it stopped, pinpointing her location less than a mile from where I stood. It wasn't the hotel she claimed to be staying at. It was another one entirely. My jaw clenched so hard I could feel the ache spreading into my temples. I should have been at home, asleep beside Emily, with the kids safe in their beds. Instead, I stood outside a hotel in the dead of night, staring at a glowing screen, trying to comprehend the depth of my wife's deception. I turned back toward the hotel's lobby, thoughts spinning, heart pounding. The kids, there was no way I could take them where I was going next. Whatever I was about to uncover, they didn't need to witness it. Back inside, I made a beeline for the front desk. The receptionist looked up, cautious but polite. "Hi," I said, keeping my voice calm and even. "I need a room for the night." She blinked, caught off guard. "Just one." I nodded, forcing a thin smile. "Yeah, it's for me and my kids. We were supposed to meet my wife here, but, I paused, exhaling as I rubbed the back of my neck. Plans changed. Something in her expression softened. "Let me check what we have available," she said. Minutes later, she handed me a key card for a room on the 3rd floor. I walked over to the kids and crouched in front of Tyler. "Hey, bud," I said gently. "We've got a room for the night. We'll sleep here and figure out the rest in the morning." Tyler frowned. "What about Mom?" I hesitated, then replied, "She's busy right now, but we'll see her soon." Saying those words made my stomach twist. It tasted like a lie. He didn't seem entirely convinced, but he nodded quietly. I picked up Lily, who stirred slightly in my arms, and we headed to the elevator. Once inside the room, I tucked them in, kissed their foreheads, and sat on the edge of the bed, staring blankly at the carpet. My phone buzzed. A message from Emily. "I told you we'd talk when I get home. Please don't do this." I stared at the words, the weight of them pressing against my chest. She made it sound like I was the one at fault. Like I was the one hiding things. Like I was the one living a double life. I typed furiously, my fingers flying over the screen. "Me? Who is he?" I watched as the 3 dots appeared, then vanished. Then came back, and disappeared again. No reply. I shoved my phone in my pocket and stood up. Enough was enough. I wasn't going to sit around and wait for her to decide when it was convenient to come clean. I knew where she was. I was going to confront her. I grabbed my jacket, gave the kids one last glance, then slipped quietly out of the room. The night air outside clung to my skin, thick with humidity, like the city itself was drowning in unspoken secrets. I moved quickly, each step louder than necessary, fueled by a cocktail of nerves and adrenaline. I kept my eyes glued to the screen, watching the little blue dot shift as I closed the distance. Emily was staying at the Paramount Grand Hotel, a 5-star tower of glass and gold, complete with uniformed doormen and chandeliers that probably cost more than a car. Definitely not the kind of place you choose for work. My teeth ground together as I slid the phone back into my pocket and pushed through the entrance. The lobby greeted me with quiet opulence, lit with a soft glow that reflected off polished marble floors. In one corner, a couple whispered over drinks. A man in a sleek suit strolled by, laughing into his phone. I marched to the front desk, my palms pressing into the counter as the receptionist looked up with a poised smile. "Good evening, sir. Are you checking in?" No, my tone was flat. "I'm looking for someone." "My wife, Emily Carter. She's staying here." Her professional smile barely flickered. "I'm sorry, sir. We can't disclose guest information." I let out a slow breath, having expected that answer. I leaned forward slightly, letting a touch of vulnerability enter my voice. "Look, I flew across the country with our kids to surprise her. She has no idea we're here. I paused, letting my voice falter. I want to see the look on her face when she opens the door." She hesitated, and that small pause gave me hope. "Please," I added gently. "If she doesn't want to see me, I'll leave. Just tell me if she's here." She stared at me, not just a glance, but a deep, searching look. Then her gaze drifted to her computer screen. Her expression shifted subtly, as though she'd just discovered the answer I hadn't even asked yet. When she spoke again, her tone had softened noticeably. She mentioned that Emily had checked in 2 nights earlier. 2 whole nights. The same period Emily had been texting me about exhausting meetings and how her schedule was wearing her down. The truth hit me hard. She had been here all along, not alone, but with someone else. My throat tightened. I managed to ask, "Which room?" She hesitated, clearly unsure whether to say more. I pressed on, trying a different route. "If you can't tell me where, could you at least say if she's alone?" The receptionist let out a quiet breath, like she was weighing a choice. Eventually, she said, "2 guests are listed on the reservation." That was all I needed. My stomach churned. I stepped away from the counter, fists clenched at my sides, my heart pounding so loudly it seemed to echo. Without another word, I turned and made my way to the elevators, my thoughts spiraling. Who was he? Could it be someone I knew? Had this been going on for longer than just this trip? The elevator doors slid open and I entered, pressing the button for the 12th floor. As the doors closed behind me, it felt like fire had ignited in my chest. Emily had no clue I was on my way up, but that was about to change. The elevator ascended quietly, the only sound being the faint strains of classical music overhead. But even that was barely noticeable above the roar of my pulse in my ears. The floor numbers climbed 8, 9, 10. I flexed my hands, trying to release the heat building inside me. By the time the elevator reached 12, I was on edge, not tired or hesitant, just completely alert, prepared. The door slid open, revealing a hallway softly illuminated by warm, golden sconces. Plush carpet cushioned my steps, absorbing every footfall. I began moving forward, keeping count of the room numbers. 1202, 1204, 1206. And then, there it was. Room 1208. I paused in front of the door, breathing evenly, fists still clenched. Behind this door was a different version of Emily, one she'd crafted with deception. A version where I didn't exist, where a life didn't exist. I didn't knock right away. I leaned closer, listening. Silence at first. Then, faint laughter. Her laugh. Muffled, but unmistakable. And then, a male voice followed. Deep. Relaxed. Low enough that I couldn't catch the words, but I didn't need to. I understood. I acted on instinct. I knocked hard. Instantly, the laughter inside stopped. For a second, silence. Then, rustling sounds. Movement. Emily's voice, closer to the door now. Room service. I nearly laughed at the absurdity. My response was steady, measured. Open the door. Emily. Another pause. This one longer. Then her voice again, rushed and surprised. James? Like she couldn't believe I was standing there. Like she hadn't been caught in the middle of a betrayal. Open the door. I repeated. What followed was worse than silence. There were hurried whispers. More movement. Like they were trying to fix something or hide. My vision blurred with anger. I slammed my fist on the door again. Emily, open it. Now. No response. I grabbed the handle and turned. Locked. I clenched my jaw, my entire body shaking. Then came his voice, closer this time. Calm. Reassuring. Just stay quiet, he told her. As though I was the threat. As though he was the one protecting her. I stepped back. Then I kicked the door. Once. Twice. On the third strike, The lock gave way, and the door swung open violently, crashing into the wall behind it. And there they stood. Emily, wrapped in nothing but a hotel robe. Her hair a mess, her eyes wide with shock. And him, a man with dark hair, probably in his mid-30s, bare-chested, standing there with confidence like he belonged. The scene hit me like a punch. The disheveled bed. A half-empty bottle of champagne resting on the nightstand. 2 glasses. Emily's mouth opened, her face drained of color. James? I didn't let her finish. My words came out quiet, but cold, cutting deeper than I'd ever spoken before. Who is he? She blinked, and then, unbelievably, let out a small, breathy laugh. Like all of this was some minor inconvenience. Like I was being unreasonable. I stepped further into the room. She backed away. James, she began again, lifting her hands in a placating gesture, her tone forced calm. I can explain. Explain. I cut her off, my voice sharp. Explain what, Emily? That you've been spending your time with another man while I was home, raising our kids? While I was literally on a plane with them, planning to surprise you. Her lips parted. She hadn't known that. That I'd brought the children. Good. I wanted the truth to hit her. To feel the weight of what she'd done. Then the man finally spoke. Look, man, he began, his tone far too calm for the moment. You need to leave. This isn't. I turned toward him so quickly he actually recoiled. Don't speak, I snapped. And he didn't. Emily moved between us, swallowing hard. James, You lied, I said, my voice like ice. Over and over. You looked me in the eye, you kissed me, kissed our children, and you lied. Why, Emily? What for? She had no answer. Her lips moved, but no sound followed. And then I saw it. That flicker in her eyes. It wasn't shame. It wasn't remorse. It was relief. Like part of her was glad the truth had finally surfaced. It was as if she had finally dropped the act, and that realization sent a chill straight through me. I took a slow breath, my fingers twitching slightly, and stepped backward. Without another word, I turned around and headed for the door. Behind me, Emily hesitated. James, where are you going? I paused and looked at her, really looked. And then, unexpectedly, I laughed. For the first time all night, clarity cut through the chaos. I reached into my pocket, took out my phone, and held it up for her to see. She stiffened. On the screen were her own messages, the locations, the texts, the layers of deceit. I had everything I needed. I gave a tight smile. I'm making sure you never get the chance to be around our children again. Then I walked out. She didn't follow me, didn't call after me, didn't even try to come up with a last-minute explanation. She just stood there in that ridiculous hotel robe, next to him, as if she had expected this outcome all along. As though this was simply another step in the twisted little story she had been weaving behind my back. Once in the hallway, my thoughts flew in every direction, so fast it was nearly impossible to hold on to any single one. Anger should have been the dominant emotion, and it was, but underneath the fury, there was something colder. A weightier realization. I saw it now. Emily was already gone. Not physically, at least not yet, but where it really counted, in loyalty, in love, in truth, she had left a long time ago. I had just refused to notice. The elevator opened with a soft chime. I stepped inside, and as the doors closed, I pulled out my phone again. I tapped into the tracking app. Find my iPhone. Her location still blinked on the screen. She was still in that room. Still there with him. Good. I exited the app and scrolled through my contacts until I landed on a name I had saved years ago but never thought I'd actually need. David Reynolds, an attorney. We had been introduced through a mutual friend. I had stored his number as a just-in-case precaution. That moment had arrived. I pressed call. After 2 rings, he answered, his voice groggy with sleep. James? Do you know it's 2 in the morning? I need a divorce lawyer, I replied calmly. A really good one. There was a short pause. Then his tone shifted, becoming more alert. What happened? My wife, I said flatly, not even recognizing my own voice. She's been unfaithful. Who knows for how long? I caught her tonight. He let out a sharp breath. Are you with her now? No, I responded. But I've got proof. The texts, her location, I know exactly where she is and who she's with. All right, he said, slipping fully into professional mode. First thing, don't do anything reckless. A dry, empty laugh escaped my throat. A little late for that. What did you do? I broke into the hotel room, I admitted. He groaned. James. I didn't touch them, I said quickly, cutting him off. Didn't lay a finger on either one. I just walked in, looked them both in the eye, and made it clear what comes next. He paused again, then asked with caution, "And what is going to happen?" I stared at the closed elevator doors, tightening my grip on the phone. "I want full custody." David went quiet. "That's a serious request." "I don't care," I snapped. "There's no way I'm letting my kids grow up under the care of someone like her. Someone who lies to them every single day while sneaking around in expensive hotel rooms with some stranger." I stopped, swallowed hard, and took a deep breath. "She doesn't deserve them." David sighed. "Okay, we'll talk first thing tomorrow morning. I need everything. The texts, the locations, any financial information you can get. Are you still at the hotel?" "Yeah," I answered. "I got a separate room for the kids. They're asleep." "Good. Let's keep it that way. Don't say anything to them yet. Not until we've built a solid plan." I gave a nod, even though he couldn't see me. "I'll see you in the morning. Try to get some rest, James." I ended the call. Rest? That seemed impossible now. The elevator opened again, and I walked out into the dimly lit lobby. It was mostly empty, the night winding down. I saw the same receptionist from earlier, still behind the desk, and approached her. She looked up with cautious eyes. "Everything okay, sir?" "Yeah," I replied. "Just one more thing." She waited patiently. "If a woman comes down soon asking whether I'm still here." She slowly nodded, sensing where this was going. "Tell her no." There was a brief pause. Then she offered a subtle, knowing smile. "Of course, sir." I gave her a grateful nod and turned to leave. Emily could stay in that hotel room with him all night for all I cared. As far as I was concerned, she had already walked out of our lives. Tomorrow, I would make sure she never found a way back. I slipped the key card into the door as silently as I could, stepping into the hotel room where my children lay asleep. The peaceful scene struck me hard, their quiet, undisturbed rest in stark contrast to the emotional chaos I had just walked through. Lily was curled up tightly, her tiny hands tucked beneath her cheek. Tyler had kicked off his blanket in his sleep, his face angled toward the door, almost as if he had been waiting for me to return. I took a slow, deep breath. I had to get this right, for their sake. Perched on the edge of the bed, I pressed my fingers against my temples, trying to quiet the chaos in my head. Every detail of what had just unfolded kept looping in my mind. The blank shock on Emily's face. The way he stood there, calm and still, as though I were the one who didn't belong. Her laugh, light, awkward, dismissive, like it was just some mix-up, not the unraveling of everything we'd built. She didn't regret it, not even a little, and that alone told me there was no salvaging this. I glanced at my phone. No alerts, no messages, no calls. Emily wasn't coming after me, and while it should have stung, maybe even sparked some anger, all it did was confirm what I already suspected. I was no longer her priority. Neither were the children. Drawing in a deep breath, I forced myself to focus. The first call had already been made to the lawyer. The wheels were in motion. Now it was time to move on to the next steps. I needed to get the kids home before she had a chance to twist the story in her favor. I had to lock down the finances before she tried anything sneaky. I had to steel myself for the moment she realized I wasn't going to let this slide. I was ready. This time, I wouldn't back down. She wasn't taking my children from me, not after what happened tonight. A soft sound interrupted my thoughts. Tyler stirred, rubbing his eyes groggily as he looked up at me. His voice was raspy with sleep, confused. "Dad." I kept my voice low and gentle. "Hey, buddy. Go ahead and close your eyes. We've got an early flight." He frowned, his brow scrunching. "Where's Mom?" I froze. This was the first real moment, the first time I had to choose what truth to tell. I could have lied, said she was finishing up some work, pretended we just missed her. But after everything, I couldn't bring myself to tell another lie. Not to him. Not anymore. Reaching out, I smoothed his hair down and spoke carefully. "Mom's busy right now, but we're heading home, okay?" His eyes fluttered, his mind still waking up. He didn't press for more. He just gave a quiet nod, rolled over, and closed his eyes again, like some part of him already understood more than I wanted him to. I swallowed hard, brushing my hand across my face. This was the beginning of a storm, chaotic and painful, but also the start of something freeing. Emily had thought she could carry on her secret life unnoticed. What she didn't realize was that by the time morning came, the life she thought was hers would be gone. Sleep was out of reach. I lay on the stiff mattress, eyes fixed on the ceiling, as my brain replayed the entire night on repeat. The door bursting open, The expression on Emily's face, startled but not ashamed. Her standing next to him like they belonged together. That breathy laugh, the one that made it clear she wasn't sorry, not in the slightest. What chilled me most wasn't her betrayal, it was her relief. She hadn't rushed to explain, hadn't cried or scrambled to deny anything. She hadn't even tried to smooth it over. She wanted me to find out. Maybe not exactly like this, but she had been ready for it to end. All these years, I believed we were a team, a unit, a family. But now I saw the truth. Emily had been living another life for a long time, one that didn't include me. I checked my phone again. Still nothing. Not a single word from her. It was nearing 4 in the morning, and she hadn't even tried to reach out. That silence didn't break me. If anything, it reinforced what I already knew. I got up quietly, trying not to wake the kids. Tyler had turned in his sleep, his face relaxed and soft. Lily remained curled up, her tiny fingers twitching slightly as she dreamed. They had no idea that their mother had just blown apart the world they knew. But I wasn't going to let her pull them down with her. I grabbed my wallet and slipped out of the room, walking silently through the dim hallway. The lobby was nearly deserted, filled with a sleepy kind of stillness. The woman from earlier had been replaced by a man in thick glasses and a rumpled shirt, who barely glanced up as I approached the desk. "Checking out early?" he asked, his voice flat from fatigue. "Not just yet," I replied. "I need a favor." He let out a sigh and rubbed his temples. "Sir, if this is about privacy issues, I really can't." "It's not about that," I interrupted. "I just need to know if anyone's been asking for me." That made him pause. He straightened a bit, finally giving me his full attention. "Are you expecting someone?" I exhaled slowly. "My wife." There was a flicker of understanding in his expression. He glanced at the screen and tapped around. "No one's asked for you. No messages. No calls." I nodded, the tightness in my chest deepening. "Thanks." The man hesitated, then asked gently, "Are you doing all right?" For a second, I almost laughed. Was I? I didn't really know. But I knew one thing for sure, what needed to happen next. "I will be," I said with quiet conviction, then turned and walked away. There was a plane waiting, and I had an entire life to dismantle before Emily could even realize it was slipping out of her hands. By 6 in the morning, we had already made it to the airport. Lily was nestled in my arms, her small face hidden against my shoulder as she slept soundly. Tyler walked close beside me, his tiny hand gripping mine tightly. Though he hadn't said much, the way he clung to me told me he sensed something had shifted, even if he couldn't quite put it into words. I had secured the first flight out. There was no hesitation, no time given for Emily to intervene or change my mind. I didn't even bother checking out of the hotel. I simply walked out. If Emily ever decided to care, she'd figure it out. My phone remained still and silent. No calls. No messages. Nothing. Emily wasn't trying to find us. I clenched my jaw as I readjusted Lily in my arms, heading through the security checkpoint. My whole body throbbed with fatigue, and my brain was operating on sheer adrenaline. Sleep hadn't come, and I hadn't paused long enough to let reality settle in. I knew that the moment I did, the truth of everything that had unfolded would hit me like a wrecking ball. And I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. We reached our gate, and I led Tyler toward a row of chairs. Carefully, I laid Lily across the seats. She shifted slightly, curling into a tiny ball, her thumb instinctively finding its way into her mouth, something she always did in deep sleep. I sat beside them, running a tired hand down my face. Then my phone buzzed. My heart jumped as I snatched it up, hoping, maybe foolishly, that it was Emily. But it wasn't her. The caller ID read, "David Reynolds, attorney." I answered immediately. "You're up early," he said. "I haven't slept at all." He let out a breath. "That's what I figured." He paused. "Are you still completely set on pursuing full custody?" "Yes," I answered without the slightest pause. Another moment of silence followed. "You understand what that involves, right? This isn't just about ending a marriage. You'll have to demonstrate that she's unfit to parent, that she's been neglectful. Affairs usually don't weigh heavily unless—" "I have evidence," I interrupted. "Messages. GPS locations. I've got it all." David sounded measured. "That's a start. But it's not enough by itself to strip her of custody. Her kids." That phrase burned into me. I nearly crushed the phone in my hand. "She abandoned them," I said coldly. "I flew across the country with our children to find her. She wasn't at the hotel." She had canceled her reservation days earlier and didn't bother to mention it. Lied to my face about where she was, what she was doing. And when I called her out, she didn't even ask about her own kids. David was quiet for a long second. Then, in a low voice, "She still hasn't tried to reach you?" "Not once." He sighed. "That works in your favor." "I'm taking them home," I said firmly. "And today, I'm freezing our accounts. I want her shut out of everything. No access to her money. No more control. I'm done giving her the power to hurt us." "That's a bold move," David admitted. "But it's doable. I can get started on the documents as soon as you land." "Do it," I said. He hesitated. "James." "Yeah. You need to be ready. Because when she realizes what's happening, she's going to push back. And it won't be civil. She won't fight fair." I swallowed hard. I was already aware of that. Emily had been lying to me for who knows how long, months, maybe even years. I wouldn't put it past her to lie in court if it came to that. But I didn't care. Because for the first time since this whole mess began, I wasn't just responding to her decisions, I was taking control of the situation myself. And I refused to lose. I glanced at my kids. They were still sleeping peacefully, unaware that everything in their world had just shifted for good. The plane touched down a little after 10 in the morning. Tyler and Lily were groggy, barely keeping their eyes open as I guided them off the plane. Tyler clung to my sleeve, letting out a huge yawn, while Lily rubbed her eyes with tiny fists. Emily still hadn't called, hadn't sent a single message, hadn't once asked where her children were. That alone spoke volumes. I carried Lily through the terminal, my thoughts already jumping ahead to the next steps: lock her out, block access, file the papers. No more second chances. Outside, I hailed a cab and gently helped the kids inside before joining them. The driver glanced at me through the rearview mirror. "Where to?" I gave him the address. "Our house. My home now." Emily wasn't part of that equation anymore. As the car began moving, I checked my phone again. One unread text. Not from Emily. It came from an unfamiliar number. I opened it. "We need to talk." No signature, no context. But I knew exactly who it was. Him, the man from the hotel. The one Emily had kept hidden. My jaw tensed. Another message popped up. "Call me. It's important." I exhaled, my hand tightening around the phone. Emily hadn't said a word to me, but her secret lover had the nerve to reach out. What could he possibly want? The cab pulled up in front of the house. I paid the driver and stepped out, Lily still fast asleep on my shoulder. Tyler looked up at me, his eyes half closed. "We're home," he mumbled. "Yeah, buddy," I replied, gently ruffling his hair. "Let's go inside." I unlocked the front door and walked in, taking a deep breath. We were finally back. Safe. Where we belonged. And Emily wasn't here. I settled Lily on the couch and covered her with a soft blanket. Tyler kicked off his shoes and grabbed the television remote. I stared at my phone, eyes fixed on the unknown number. Then I stepped onto the back porch and pressed call. It rang twice before he picked up. "James," he said, voice too calm. Like he wasn't the same man I had caught in my wife's hotel room, half-dressed. My teeth clenched. "What exactly do you want from me?" There was a pause. Then, "You need to hear what I have to say." I nearly laughed. "You expect me to listen to you? Are you seriously that delusional? I know how this all looks." "You don't know anything." "I do," he replied, tone still steady. Then he said something that made a chill run through my entire body. "This isn't just a fling, James. It's something much bigger." I clutched the phone tighter as he let out a slow breath. "There's something about Emily you don't know." It felt like the ground beneath me shifted. A sense of foreboding crept in, something darker was looming, and for the first time since this entire ordeal began, I didn't know if I was prepared to face it. I turned away from the house, stepping further out onto the porch, squeezing the phone so hard it felt like it might snap in my hand. "What exactly are you talking about?" I asked, voice tight. The man on the other end exhaled slowly again, clearly trying to choose his words carefully, as if once he spoke, there'd be no way to undo it. Then he said, "Emily isn't the person you believe she is." I actually laughed, an empty, bitter sound with no trace of humor. "Yeah? No surprise there. I just found her in bed with you. Pretty sure I figured out what kind of person she is." But he didn't respond. No denial. No excuses. That hesitation gave me pause. His tone was too even, too composed, like shattering my life wasn't even the worst part of what he had to tell me. I swallowed hard. "Just say what you called to say before I change my mind and come find you myself." He took another breath. "She's been deceiving both of us." My body went rigid. "Both?" I swear, James, he said. I had no idea she was married. I didn't know about you. I didn't know she had children. Not until last night. When you walked through that door. That was the first time I even heard your name. I frowned, trying to process. And I'm just supposed to believe that? I don't care if you believe me or not, he replied bluntly. What matters is what happens now. There was something in his tone, an edge of certainty and gravity, that made my skin crawl. He went on. Emily told me she was divorced. That she had kids, sure, but barely saw them. That you were her ex, and it was all just legal formalities. My stomach turned. Why would she lie about that? I asked, disbelief thick in my voice. I don't know, he admitted. But there's more. The air seemed to still around me. He continued. Last night, after you left, and after she laughed it off like none of it mattered, I started digging. She left her phone unlocked when she went to shower. So I checked it. My pulse began to race. She has 2 lives, James. I gripped the phone harder. What? 2 phones. 2 bank accounts. 2 completely separate identities. Emily Carter isn't just in marketing, he said. She deals in financial transfers, offshore banking, shell companies that don't exist, fraud. And I think she's been doing it for a long time. My throat tightened. She played us both, he added, his voice sharper now. She took thousands from me. At first, I thought it was normal. She just asked me to let her use my accounts to move some money around. Made it seem casual. But then I found messages, conversations with other men, more accounts. It's a routine for her. My heart slammed in my chest. She targets men, ones with financial stability, earns their trust, makes them believe they're important to her. Then she starts borrowing. And once she's embedded herself deep enough. He paused. I let out a slow breath through my nose. Then what? His voice was barely above a whisper. Then she vanishes. It felt like the ground dropped out from under me. She was planning to run, James. Not just from you. From the kids. From the entire life she had built with you. I found emails. Tickets booked under a fake name. She's been quietly draining your accounts for months. Staggered, I stumbled back and grabbed onto the porch railing to steady myself. Tell me you're making this up, I said. But deep down, I already knew he wasn't. Check it yourself, he told me. If she hasn't already emptied your accounts, she will. If she hasn't bought the ticket yet, she's about to. Everything inside me felt like it was tearing apart. My wife hadn't just been unfaithful. She had created an entirely separate existence behind my back. And she had planned to disappear. To abandon everything. Me. Our children. Everything we had. Tyler. Lily. I turned quickly and looked through the window at them. Tyler was still absorbed in his cartoons, while Lily lay nestled under a blanket. Neither of them had any idea that their mother had intended to walk away from their lives. Something broke inside me. I brought the phone back to my ear, my voice low and heavy with intensity. Does she know you found out? A brief silence. No. Good. I was already in motion, stepping back into the house and heading straight for my laptop. Sitting at the kitchen counter, I began typing furiously, breath shallow. I pulled up every account. Our joint savings, the children's trust fund, everything. And my blood froze. Thousands were missing. Quietly transferred out in small enough amounts to avoid suspicion. But the money was gone. She had been laying the groundwork for this for months. Grinding my teeth, I fought back the storm of rage rising in my chest. Not anymore. I dialed David's number, and he answered without delay. My voice was cold and edged with anger as I asked, James? She's been taking money from me. From the children's accounts, no less. There was a brief silence on the other end. How much are we talking? I pressed. More than enough. I replied, keeping my tone firm and unyielding. Without wasting another moment, I continued navigating through various accounts, confirming login credentials, and initiating freezes on any accessible funds. I want her completely cut off, I instructed, not bothering to soften my tone. It doesn't matter what you need to do, or how fast it has to happen. Just make sure she can't touch another cent. I heard David let out a long breath. This changes the entire situation, he said, sounding troubled. No, I answered quickly. It only reveals what was already there. Now everything is just clearer. My eyes remained fixed on the glowing screen in front of me, the sharp burn of betrayal making it hard to blink. Emily had spent weeks, no, months, crafting her escape, scheming in the shadows while pretending everything was fine. She believed she had been cautious, but she had outsmarted me. She assumed I hadn't noticed, that I wouldn't respond. But she had underestimated me. Because the moment she decided to flee, she triggered a chain reaction, and I was going to be the one to dismantle everything she had built.